Kirkowski.
Here.
Alderman Lorik is excused. Alderman Dukniak.
Here.
Alderman Toman.
Here.
Alderman Gale.
Here.
And Alderman Guzikowski is excused.
Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Sig, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of minutes of 6/5/18. Has everybody had a chance? If there's no corrections, amendments, omissions. Ken, I think you were
Oh, I was
gone.
not here. Melissa, we can still vote on that if 3 of the 4 can vote on that?
Approval of the minutes, because Ken wasn't here. All right, we will hold the meeting, hold the minutes of 6/5/18 until we have a quorum vote. Yes, because we're missing the 2 that were here. Can we get a motion to hold until the 17th, please?
Kirkowski make a motion that we hold the approval of minutes from the June 5th, 2018 meeting until we get a quorum for the vote.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 4 is consideration of a resolution authorizing payments and bills and debts and obligations. All right, Bridget's got that one.
Yes, this is a result of having only one meeting in July, so we need your approval to be able to pay those bills, release them as normal, and you will receive 2 reports then in the second Common Council meeting in July.
Questions, comments? Motion?
It will move to approve Resolution 11952-061918, a resolution authorizing payment of bills, debts, and obligations.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Item 5 is informational. It's our strategic action plan report, capital improvement program with funding alternatives. Should we move it all the way up? I was going to jump it before. It's going to take a while. Okay. We will move item 12. It seems like we have a high interest in item 12, so we're going to take item 12. And item 12 is consideration of a resolution approving a certified survey map for Tony DeRosa HSI Properties for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way. Doug.
Thank you. HSI Properties, as you may have recalled from some of our previous Plan Commission meeting and from some previous discussions, is proposing the development of the properties at 8300 et al. South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way. Number of different properties there. This certified survey map is a land division document that actually reconfigures the property boundaries of that into the parcels that would be usable for the ultimate development. And that development in and of itself, the rezoning and the PUD, will be coming before this council for a public hearing on July 17th, your July meeting, whatever the date of that was, and it will be duly noticed. I mean, this is a land division. This is your approval of the land division document. But as part of this land division document, the right-of-way for Orchard Way is being dedicated, and I trust that that will generate some discussion this evening. But the CSM, the land division document, meets all of our codes. The properties are conforming. The dedication of that officially mapped right-of-way is consistent with state statute, with local statute, with our official maps, with the 27th Street Access Management Plan. So in lieu of that, the Plan Commission has reviewed this proposed CSM, again, reconfiguring the property boundaries, and they have recommended your approval this evening.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Arden. We do have a few speakers. Tony, Tony, you want to present anything before? Or you want to wait and answer some questions as they come up?
Tony DeRosa, 18500 West Corporate Drive in Brookfield. I don't have a presentation. Be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. We do have some people that wish to speak. Although this isn't a public hearing, we are going to allow speakers. So first person to submit does not wish to speak, but we will read it into the record. It's Angel Young at 8533 South Melrose Drive. Her comment is, what will be done to protect our children when they are out riding their bikes without sidewalks with all the added traffic? Next speaker is Rosanna Yankee. Please come up. Got a name and address.
Okay, Rosanna Yankee. Address is 8503 South Melrose Drive. When, actually you were the alderman, you came door to door asking what you could do to help the residents. One of the things we requested was to have a sign on our street that said, special needs child. And I think within a certain range, the speed limit lowered to 15 miles an hour. So we obviously still live on that street and have a son with special needs. So that is one of my concerns, is his safety. Being out on that road, we have neighbors that live across the street that have children that he plays with down the block. So he goes different areas on our street, and that larger amount of traffic is going to be unsafe for him. So that's a concern that I have.
Okay, understood. We'll try to collect all the questions and then try to
Okay.
answer them all.
All right.
How's
Thank you.
that? Next, Scott Yankee. 8503 South Melrose Drive. Does not wish to speak. Whoop. I will read it in. When Dan was the alderman, he asked what he could do to help, and we had a stop sign added at Honadell and Cortland. Very few people obey the sign. More traffic is just going to be unsafe in these situations. Next, Catherine Rindle does not wish to speak. She's at 8516 South Melrose Drive, and it is, our streets are not safe enough for children now. Last August, my 10-year-old daughter was almost abducted by a strange van. She already no longer feels safe playing outside. Adding even more vehicles with all these children, what other kinds of incidents are we opening our city up to? Can't you find an alternate route like 20th Street instead of our streets? Next, Jennifer Dupas, 8550 South Apple Creek, and you wish to speak?
I guess my question is very similar to the previous, which is...
Sorry, ma'am, name and
Oh,
address.
sorry,
Thank
Jennifer
you.
Dubus, 8550 South Apple Creek Drive. We've lived in our house for about 17 years, and part of the reason we bought the house that we did was we liked the neighborhood, that it was very self-enclosed. There's no through traffic because there's no reason to go through. It doesn't connect to anything, it's enclosed. And there's a lot of families. People are walking their dogs, they're pushing their kids in strollers, the kids are riding their bikes. There is no place to be except the street. We have no sidewalks. There's no shoulders of any sort. There's a little bit of gravel here and there, and our roads are very narrow. I think it's going to be very unsafe, and my concern is for my child riding her bike on the street. As it is, there's a certain amount of traffic, but since we all live there, we all watch out for each other's kids. We're careful when we go around the turns to make sure you're not flying through really quick. As it is, there are some people who drive through pretty quickly. My concern is with the additional traffic that's going to come in. The new people living in these apartments won't know about our streets being narrow. They won't realize that the kids have to be on the streets because there are no sidewalks. They'll assume the kids might be on a sidewalk. They might not be looking out for them, and my concern is that there would be an accident, a kid's going to get hit by a car, someone's dog is going to get run over, something along those lines. The roads are not built to sustain additional traffic, and so my question would be, would there be sidewalks put into our subdivision? Would there be some other method that would prevent something like that from happening? And I agree with one of the previous comments. Is there another alternative exit to this new development? Could it go out in a different direction that would not be connected to our subdivision?
Thank you. And last comment, Aaron Eaton, 2140 West Orchard Way. Aaron? Name and address, please.
Erin Eaton, 2140 West Orchard Way. I emailed all of you, so I'm not going to go through all the safety issues, but I think that other people have kind of painted a pretty good picture of these are not like roads that look like they've been built in the last 15 years. They were built, I don't think, to code. I'm not really sure. And if they were, these are codes that have clearly been updated and drastically improved. I've been told that the reason that Orchard Way needs to go through at the last planning commission was that it's part of the plan. I'm not sure if that was the plan from like 20 years ago when this development was first put in, but I don't think that plan envisioned a 225 unit apartment complex. If it's a different plan, I guess my issue is what benefit is it to me to have Orchard Way, which is the street that I live, go through? There's an IKEA right there. Traffic along 27th Drexel and Putes, which is kind of what encloses this, already has dramatically increased, which is where we live. So we're going to be having people looking for shortcuts. Drexel is constantly backed up. I'm sure you know that. So people are going to be looking, people who don't even live in these apartment complexes are going to be looking for shortcuts. Not to mention these 500 vehicles coming through whenever they need to go anywhere southeast, like Drexel Town Square or Pick and Save on Howell or Georgie Porgy's, to name some of my favorite places. From what I can tell from the map, there's an ingress egress where Colonial Woods now is. There's another one that they're going to build off of 27th. So this, I think, if I'm not reading this right, would be the third. I understand why there's a need for 2 ingress egress for the safety of these future potential renters that we don't know and have never met, but it dramatically increases the safety issues for the taxpayers and the residents that have been living here for 15 plus years and voting you guys all in office for 15 years and paying our taxes on time. So it's kind of concerning to us why our safety is less of a concern than people we haven't met yet. If there's absolutely no way around it, I just want to say I don't think most of my neighbors are against this development in general. We know something's going to be there. We accept that. This is not for sure the worst case scenario. And if for some reason it has to come through our subdivision, my concern is this plan getting approved and us getting forgotten about because the stamp has been, the seal of approval has been stamped on the plan, and now we're stuck with no sidewalks, no streetlights, no curbs, and drainage ditches immediately on the side of the road. So I do have a question about how would we be safeguarded if this were to get approved and there's no way around making our subdivision a throughway now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And one last speaker. Come on up. Looks like I got an initial. Oh. Okay.
I guess the first question I have is, how come we weren't all notified about this?
Our ordinance states within 300 feet of the project, and our city planner can give you the details of where that starts.
I fall within that 300 feet if you measure from Orchard Way. So I'm wondering where they measured from.
Doug, where do you typically measure
Oh,
from?
we take it, again, this is a certified survey map. This is not a public hearing. It doesn't require a public hearing by statute. For the plan commission meetings, we do notify folks. Did you get notice for the plan commission meeting? Mm-mm. All right, we can check that offline, but typically, depending on, we take the mailing list right from the county's Register of Deeds office. If it falls within 300 feet, we can check and make sure that you're on the mailing list or anyone's on the mailing list for future meetings. But typically, we find a lot of times that sometimes the notices don't get read, but we'll check it out, and
We read our mail.
Yep.
I'm more concerned about, did you measure from like where Orchard Way joined our subdivision from the new property?
It would be
Up
from the
here?
property boundary.
Up there,
Yes, from the,
way up at the top.
but wherever it would be on the south, wherever the property boundary ended, it'd be the entire property. 300 feet from that.
And I didn't understand.
The entire property, you take a 300-foot buffer around that entire property. If you own property within that, you would receive a notice.
Okay, so the new proposed property.
Yes, every property that's, in this case, it was for a rezoning, not necessarily for the certified survey map, but it just happens it's the same boundary. So if you own a property within 300 feet of that proposed rezoning, which includes all those properties that are part of the certified survey map, or CSM, excuse me, sorry about that, you would receive a notice.
I don't meet that definition, but certainly we're affected by what's going on Orchard Way.
And we'd be happy to add you to the mailing list. I mean, that's not an absolute, if you live outside of 300 feet, we're not going to notify you. If you contact your alderman, if you contact me, if you tell me, Doug, tonight, I'd like to be added to that mailing list, we will add you to that mailing list.
Okay, so anybody that lives in our development who wants to be added to the mailing list for the duration of this project could be added?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, there's a way, and I'd be happy to sit down with anyone after the meeting if they want to leave me your name. You can do it online. There's a number of different ways you can do that.
I'd like to know.
Elizabeth, can you just talk into the microphone? We need you on record.
Thank you. No problem. I just want to understand why there were so few people, because that would make sense. There were only about 10 properties, I think, in our group that would have been notified based on your definition. And so the rest of us, even though we're all affected by the increased traffic on Orchard Way and the increased safety problems that we're going to have, none of us got notified.
Oh, anyone? Oh, technology, right? I can see it.
Yeah,
There
I
you
gave
go.
Yes, we do. 8603 South Melrose.
So anyone who would be within 300 feet of that area that you see on red on the map
Yeah.
would have received a notice. And if you don't, or for some reason you didn't receive a notice, just leave me your name and address. We'd be happy to add you.
It'd probably be just about 6 or 7 houses that would have been notified then by his definition.
Probably a few more than that, but
Yeah, it wouldn't have been very many of us. But, and then the other thing I wanted to comment on, because all I do is think about this, is that property to the north of the new property, that's already completed.
Colonial Woods you're speaking about.
Yes, sir. Am I okay with the microphone?
I think so.
Okay, so there's about another 100 cars up there. My husband's the blind guy in this neighborhood. You know that guy? Everybody knows my husband.
Okay, now I know where you're at.
Yeah, I know that guy. So, we walked up there to the little stub road, and of course, it takes me a long time to explain everything to him. And then I told him about those buildings. I don't know what kind of buildings those are, but I told him about them. And we said, they're going to come through too. Because when you do that bit, when
Thank
you
you.
do that bit for this group, they're going to have access. And there's 100 cars in there. We know that because they recently resurfaced it last fall. And boy, you know how many cars were in there.
Please, on the microphone, ma'am.
You know, there were another 100 cars in there. So when I gave you the estimate of 500 cars, I was wrong. It's going to be 600. And they're all going to be looking for the shortcut to come through to go shopping. Because like, who said, yeah, like she said, nobody's going to want to go on Drexel. That's a dead end for us. We're not stupid, we live here. You know, and we know what's coming. We know what's going on in our neighborhoods, and we don't want to risk going out there. So everyone's they're all like us. They're just the same as us. And they're gonna all come through our properties. And I don't want my blind guy out there with that. It's a very real issue for him. He goes around with his cane, and in this winter, he gets lost in the street. And somebody sends him home. and you are opening that up to him. These guys that come through here, when they do come through in our own group, they come through at 40 to 50 miles an hour. You're opening up so many hazards by not addressing our issues before you build that property. None of us have said we're against your building. We're only saying, don't ignore us, right? Am I right?
Elizabeth, what was your address again? I'll add you to our mailing list.
Oh, you better.
What is it?
8603.
8603?
Yeah, I don't usually speak up, I usually live.
Oh, that's fine.
But don't do this to us. Fix us, then give your project a go. We're all behind you. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak before we have comments from staff and anybody else? Can you fill out a form, please? Can you grab a form afterwards and fill it out so we have you on record?
Jeanette Bellistreri, 2120 West Orchard Way. When I was talking to our mayor the other day, I told him straight out, I think 3 or 4 times, we all back this. We think it's a great idea. I like the idea that us being able to walk over there. I'm hoping that this development is going to get finished versus the 2 condo developments that never got finished. They promised us workout rooms that they were going to have up there, and I believe a park for some reason, and that never did get finished. Now I see the same guy that's doing this is also doing a development on Drexel and Pennsylvania. Is it finished?
Yes.
The pool and all that good stuff that he promised, that's all there?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't see that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, you can take a ride through. It's actually, I think there's one phase is still under construction, but
Phase 2, I believe,
phase
Mayor.
2, but the rest is all completed.
Well, my biggest complaint is that we are a high-end neighborhood. Last year, I spent $6,500 on taxes. So that's nothing to shake a stick at, I believe. I worked for the highway department for 33 years, plowing, and I know it's not an issue with the plowing because the mayor told me because we need them connected for the plow drivers. I don't know, I beg to differ on that. I think that our roads are not made for this. And I want to know that if you do go through with this and have my road go through and is responsible for 600 extra cars, are you going to guarantee me that this developer is going to pay for my roads when they have to be fixed? Or do I have to pay for that? That's what I want to know. And I just think that my little subdivision being responsible for 600 more cars in the city of Oak Creek is ridiculous. And I just don't think it's right. And I know a lot of us feel that way. Is there some way that you can make it that these people don't have to come through my neighborhood or our neighborhood for this? I mean, come on. You have a lot of engineers on board here. Can't you guys do something for us? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there one more?
I'm sorry, that's...
My name's Christine Strubing. I live at 8562 South Cortland Drive. My husband and I built in there 17 years ago. I agree with what the lady just said prior to us. We are not opposed to this, this building, the apartments, I think it's great for our community, but what I'm opposed with is what everybody else is concerning. I think that where there's a will, there's a way, and I encourage you and I pray that you listen to the people's voices in this neighborhood that came to this meeting tonight. I went to a meeting similar 10, maybe 12 years ago when 20th Street was supposed to come through our neighborhood, and we stopped it. We came to town hall meetings and we stopped it. And I know that where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm just praying and asking that you hear everybody's voices here tonight. And if a decision was already made before that you came in tonight, and that now that you've heard everybody speak tonight, that at least you take some time to digest this and really see if there's a possibility for alternatives. Because I think of Oak Creek and I think of our community. I actually grew up here my whole life. I'm 44. It's very different. It's not farmlands anymore. It's ever changing, and I understand that. But there's not a lot of places in our community where there's nestled neighborhoods like what we have with that high volume of traffic coming through. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brian Dubus at 8550 South Apple Creek Drive, resident of that subdivision for 17, 18 years. Like my wife said earlier, one of the main reasons why we moved there because it was a little bit secluded. It was cute, it was neat, it was appealing to us. Even though that we saw that stub road there, we always wondered what would ever happen with that. And I understand what a CSM is. I understand it's official, it's legal, I get that. But when you have this many people here and a lot of emails coming through to you guys for communication of we're all on the same page of what we're hoping for, to maybe think outside the box a little bit of revisiting that CSM, get it resurveyed. We're doing it with zoning. You're changing the zoning to get that development there. And I do understand business. I understand maybe we're a little bit thin here with some of our TIF districts that we implemented here in Oak Creek. This could be a good money generator to flatten that out a little bit. I don't know if I'm correct with that or not, but I want to see growth. None of us are saying don't grow Oak Creek. But the dangers that this potentially could have for our immediate community, I think, is speaking volumes of the people that you see here today. If the developer doesn't want to develop because he really wants that street there, and I know Doug is looking at the continuity of joining neighborhoods together. I appreciate and get that too. But when you have residential and then you have rental property, I think it's two different things. If it was another subdivision going in there, like an R1 or R2, that would maybe make a little bit better sense. I could see the continuity of those two developments merging perfectly. But when you have renters compared to homeowners, beyond of what everybody said already with the safety of the traffic going through there, it doesn't taste well in my palate. It doesn't make sense on a land use basis. If you're going to stick with the CSM and that road's going to go in there and the developer won't come in there because of that road and you're going to appease them, then can we have further discussions of what that road might look like? I have a lot of friends that, I'm a geographer by trade, and I have a lot of friends in the private sector that are planners. In their communities, in their cities, they put little roundabouts there to soften the speed of the traffic going through there. It's a little bit of a deterrent as well that might discourage people to use Apple Creek subdivision as a shortcut. So I would like to say to you guys, let's keep this open dialogue. Let's maybe talk about it more if the road is going to go in and see what other alternatives we have there. Maybe a road isn't viable. Maybe if you want to connect both of the subdivisions together, maybe we have a walkway, a path to do that. That could be another option as well. So I think a lot of us are willing to play ball. obviously our first choice is not to build a road, right? Okay.
Obviously.
Right. But if we can keep this open and work together, and not slam our foot down or, in front of the door here or whatever, keep the open dialogue, I think that is a good first step. And keeping this open dialogue going and working together to make this potential, in our minds, damaging development into something that could be positive. So, thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
My name's Joe Heller. I live at 8527 South Brayburn. And thanks to Christy, you still here? She said when there's a will or there could be a way. Well, Ken sitting next to me used to build things, used to direct things. And if I can go to the map and show you what he just said, it could be a way. May I?
I'm all ears, but I can't see what you're pointing at, so.
On his computer, but at the
Stay on that microphone, please.
all right, I'm not going to run his computer, but on the furthest south direct running east and west line, which would be the southern border of the proposed development. Exactly. Well, the mayor can't see that, but what he says makes sense. That off of 27th Street, coming east for that 200 or 300 feet, that could be a road that connects to Orchard Way and swings up to the Colonial Woods, Colonial Development, and therefore you have another entry to the development that comes in off of 27th Street, connects to Orchard Way in that development, and goes north to Colonial Woods, and doesn't come south to our neighborhood. And I think that's a way, and it could save us, and he can still have his development, and you can still do connectivity to Colonial Woods, but you don't have to connect to Apple Creek. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're about done. Before I have any comments, I guess I'll make a short comment, then I'm going to have staff address some of the issues and actually the procedure of what we're actually doing here. I fielded a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls on this. We're not deaf and we're not blowing you off by any means. We're following our process and our overall plan of what we're doing. We definitely want to work together. I don't know if it was the same gentleman with the roundabout. Somebody emailed me, or I talked to him somewhere along the line about roundabouts and different options that could go in there. Never know. Anything is possible, what have you. As far as the road goes in the subdivision, safety is a big concern, and justifiably so. It's probably the most paramount thing we do around here is safety. When your subdivision was built, keep in mind that we do not put that in anymore. Okay, we just simply don't build it that way because it leads to safety concerns later on. Okay, back in the day, it's a little before my time, subdivisions like that were going in. Whether it was a cost savings or what it was, I don't know. If it was to spur the development, get the developments in, they were put in that way. We don't do it. It doesn't control the water well. It's unsafe. The sidewalks aren't there. The streetlights aren't there. So, again, those things can always be corrected, but at great cost. And that cost is probably, could come through assessment, it could come through a number of ways, but it's very expensive to correct. Okay? Secondly, we don't want to keep making mistakes within our plans. So, again, we're trying to stick to the plan as best we can. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee we're going in. We are open about this, as the gentleman just said. But this is a step in the process that we're going through. Oh. Falls of a glass wall. Live. Man, I lost my train of thought. Holy cow. Anyways, getting back to it, with the emails, we are open to different suggestions as to what we can do. We're not going out of our way to try and impact everybody. And in the emails and sometimes in the phone calls, there's a lot of assumption. Okay? I don't know what the car volume is. Everybody's assuming because there's 500 spaces, there's 500 cars, and every single car is coming south. That may be true, may be false. I don't know that. I don't know who's going out to 27th. I don't know who's going north. I don't even know how many cars will be there. There's been assumptions of who will be there. Will these people be sexual predators? Will they be subsidized? Things of that nature. Will crime rise? We have no way of knowing that, nor can we assume that. Okay? We just can't take that into account. So please try to keep the assumptions, generally on the important things, which is really the issue at hand, and that's the road, because we're just kind of wasting time going over those scary things. And again, we have other means to control those things, but right now we have no idea what's going in. So, but in front of us is a CSM, and I'd like Doug go through the process of what happens with this development, start to finish from this point on. And this is just an assumption that this is how this project would progress.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. This is as I mentioned before, a land division document, and anyone who owns property can, petition the city to subdivide their properties. In this case, it's a combination of subdivision and kind of combination of different properties. And when you do that, the city has what it's called an official map, so that for instance, when somebody built a house in the Apple Creek subdivision or any subdivision, there's a map there saying, well, this is what the road pattern is going to be like for that neighborhood. So it attempts to make connected neighborhoods, and connected neighborhoods in many cases are safe neighborhoods. And that's always going to be the goal of this community, is to provide for safe neighborhoods and for public safety, for efficiency of services. Connected neighborhoods are preferable. So with that in mind, the land division document, which wouldn't be recorded necessarily unless the development went forward and got properly entitled through the zoning process, is perfectly in accordance with the city's statutes, with the official map. So from that standpoint, it's one part of a larger process that includes a rezoning and what we call a planning and development, which is approval of a general development plan for the property, and ultimately approval of the detailed site and building plans for the clubhouse, for the individual buildings. And that the general development plan and the rezoning, that's going to be happening at a public hearing before this council on July 17th. It's your only July meeting, and whatever the third Tuesday is. Forgive me if I'm getting the date wrong. Is that correct? So it's the 17th. At that point in time, that's a public hearing on the rezoning, and the council will consider the issues with respect to, is this property suitable for that type of zoning? And, from the perspective, and I'll let Mike, our city engineer, talk about the design of the streets and what have you, because, he's quite honestly better versed in that field to make those types of comments. But, it's never the goal of the city to disenfranchise any neighborhood or any property owner. In fact, the official map process is designed so that there is this level of certainty out there, so that when you're making an investment in your property, whether you're buying a property, whether you're buying a house, whether you're building a house, you know how that neighborhood's going to develop and what the roadway network in that neighborhood is. And someone mentioned 20th Street and that not going through, and I think in part that's a lesson maybe to be considered when you don't follow the plan, that it kind of has a steamroll effect. And we try to have those connections. Again, we talked about it for police, fire, for other public services, and for connectivity. But if we keep on chipping away at that, it creates problems down the road. And nobody wants to see that. Are there ways we can make those streets safer? You bet. And we'd be happy to entertain certainly whatever traffic calming measures that are available. And I think the council is looking at some type of traffic and safety issues this evening as part of some other intersections. But I think that we're always going to keep the conversation open, and there's a better way of doing things we're always going to take a look at that. But there is, change is going to be, it's challenging for folks, and you assume the worst in many cases. But there are benefits to having connected neighborhoods through public safety, again, provision of public services. And that's really what the official maps were designed for. That's what they use to guide development of that entire neighborhood, just so we don't have a series of disconnected neighborhoods. For better or for worse, that is the process. That is the decision that is before this council this evening, as well as July 17th.
So beyond July 17th, after the CSM, as the project would come through with official plans and what have you, they would also get a look at the project itself, landscape, the whole deal.
Absolutely, yes. And as a matter of fact, I believe that if that information is not already available through our zoning connection on our city website, it will be shortly.
Mike, can you address the roads that exist currently in Apple Creek, and kind of why they got in there the way they did? I know I gave a explanation, but I'm sure you can do better than me.
Well, I think you actually did hit the nail on the head. That's the way some of these residential subdivisions were being constructed back then, and this is approximately 20 years ago. 20 to 22 years ago that Apple Creek subdivision was constructed. And the road is 24 foot wide. Somebody had mentioned that they thought the road was not to standards. They are. They're really not to the city's standards as they have evolved, but they are in accordance with adequate engineering standards. And so that's 12 foot wide lanes in each direction. And even you can go 11. But the bottom line is that it's a rural cross-section roadway. So there are no sidewalks, there are no curbs, there is no lighting, and there's no sidewalks. So is it lacking a lot of the features that the more modern, more recently developed residential subdivisions? The answer is yes.
Let him finish up, ma'am, and you have to be on the microphone.
Yeah, so I guess I would say that, I've heard a lot of comments tonight, and I would say they all have some validity. Maybe some more than others, but I heard a lot of good arguments here tonight. Doug spoke to the whole planning process. These road patterns are well thought out in advance so that we are not building one development that is not working well with the overall neighborhood or larger community. And I think when you hear these impassioned arguments, there's a temptation to kind of forget about some of that work that was done 20, 25 years ago. Well thought out. And in the end, if you don't really go through this and you kind of forget about how you got to where you are, it's more reactionary, and then you're left a bit disjointed. So there's really arguments in both directions there. The other things that we need to consider are the emergency access. If you cut this one off, that's one less way. If there's something on 27th Street and emergency vehicles can't get in, there's an issue there. Mr. Dupas brought up the dead end road. Everybody that built in there saw that dead end road, and I think everybody figured someday that's going to go through. Well, that day might be coming soon. Maybe not, but can't anybody say they're surprised that this road would go through. The development to the north of this property, Colonial Woods, they have complied and they have put that public roadway in. This is connecting that up. If this doesn't go in, what happens with that road? That is kind of left out there as a strip of asphalt, not connected on either end. So again, that's where this planning has come into consideration, fruition, but you can be left with a lot of disjointed connectivity and neighborhoods if things don't continue on that well thought out and planned pathway.
Ma'am, you had a question. Would you like to come up? Name and address again, please.
Sure, Elizabeth Landrum, 8603 South Melrose. You said that this is the rural roads, and that these were built 20 years ago. How many of them did the city of Oak Creek build?
I'm sorry, I can't. Ma'am, you speak into the mic. I can't hear what you're saying, and then you're not facing us.
How many of these did the city of Oak Creek build, and how many of them remain unimproved?
I guess I don't have an answer to that question other than I wouldn't say that this road is unimproved. It was constructed to the standards of the day.
Correct. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just wondering, are we the only one?
No.
I can think Alderman Dukniak is in one. I live in a neighborhood like this. Oakwood Lakes is a neighborhood like this. There's
a handful.
There's a handful designed to this kind of standard.
Okay. Are they connected to apartment complexes?
Most neighborhoods, no.
I can't say that we're connected. However, the Wimmer Brothers development, Centennial, is a block away from us, from Stonegate Estates. And I don't know what the population is in that development, but it probably rivals in size what the proposed development would be in your area.
So does it have this same connectivity problem?
It does with an adjoining subdivision, Oakshire is what it's called, and the streets do run through, yes.
They're going through the same thing we are, where you have the increased volume of traffic coming through in order to get to some desired destination.
Post Office, Howell Avenue, Kohl's, Target, without a doubt, yes. And I know Traffic and Safety Committee did extensive research on speed limits there, on traffic volume, and thankfully that new street that was put in, it's called Centennial Drive, correct?
Centennial?
Yeah, there has been no major traffic or accident issues in that area in I think that's up about 12 to 15 years now.
I drive to the post office on Centennial.
Yeah.
This is the back part of Centennial, the east part of Centennial you're talking about?
From Howell Avenue, it extends east, directly into the Oakshire subdivision. Okay. And with an exit then, Oakshire will exit out on Nicholson Road. So when you talk about connectivity, I guess there is the model for it. It enables a person to get on Howell Avenue and go east, and you're going through neighborhoods.
Okay, I just want to go look at one and see how it works.
Another one you could look at is Willow Heights off 13th and Drexel. There's apartment complexes directly to the west of us. There's probably 300 to 400 units in there. That's a big one. Is it that big, Doug?
I think there's probably two different apartment complexes there, but yes.
Yeah.
Probably that same number.
And it connects to the Willow Heights subdivision, and there's really three entrances. There's two off 13th where people...
Can I get there?
Oh, sure, you can get there. If you go up Drexel to 10th Street, the Quick Trip, hang a left, and it'll take you right into the subdivision, and you can get out on Willow, which the apartments regularly use. You can also wind your way through.
I just want to go look and see how it works.
Yeah, but there's three entrances.
I do recall another, the subdivision that I live in, Stonegate Estates, has a roadway that connects to the Oak Park Apartments. So again, connectivity of neighborhoods. You're able to access off of Putes Road, go through Stonegate Drive, through the Oak Park Apartments, and into our subdivision. And I'll let you finish.
No,
I have a question.
Could somebody send me those addresses?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so
Doug has your contact information. We'd be happy to send you
that. I could go
that.
look at them? That'd be very helpful, so I'm not working in the blind. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do have a question, Mayor Dan. Me being new to this, Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. So Mike and Doug, so tonight we're voting on approving the certified survey map. But this isn't the final development proposal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is the land division document. And keep in mind that this CSM, or certified survey map, would not be recorded unless the development were approved.
Okay. And then and one of our guests this evening brought up the point of the roundabout. Let's say that through discussions and meetings, we did come up with some creative ways of managing traffic in that area. That can still be included in a plan, even though the certified survey map has been approved, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, guys. Okay. Oh. Come on up. Ma'am, you're next.
Again, Brian Dubus, 8550 South Apple Creek Drive. I was looking at the clock, so I've got this one statement. But Doug did mention something about first responders. Again, I'm a professional geographer. I'm a GIS guy. I did drive time analysis on both fire departments in the area. It's not faster going that way.
Well, they would go there and just say a giant sinkhole opened up on 27th and they couldn't access.
Right.
They need alternates. The more alternates they have, the safer it becomes.
And I guess, Brian, I can certainly appreciate that from looking at a map. And you're right, it's probably drive time's not any different. But if you talk to our assistant chief, and the Plan Commission has, and we have, and he explained why and how they would access a particular subdivision, home, what have you, in the event of emergency. And it's not, they're not looking at Google Maps and looking at drive time. So it's, from that standpoint, there's a rationale behind why they do the things they do and why they want the types of access that they want.
And I totally agree. If something happens on 27th Street, like you said, Mayor,
And
sinkhole.
there is no giant sinkhole on 27th.
Unless we get 8 inches of rain, maybe. So using professional GIS software, not Google Maps, doing drive time analysis.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make that characterization.
No, that's all right, Doug. So that's a point I wanted to make. So if it does come up when final plans for development, and if that's going to be a argument point on the developer to use of, hey, here's another entrance into your subdivision because your first responders will get there quickly, that wouldn't be true. To be fair and to be honest, if it is a criminal act and you want to trap somebody in there, then in my mind, hopefully my neighbors won't bash me too bad on this, it might make sense if you're going to corner somebody with a car. But if it's just first responder on health or fire, it wouldn't be faster, maybe not even for a police vehicle, as well as the EMS equipment going in there with the radiuses of the vehicles, turn radiuses going in there, and the 2 additional stop signs. I think we all agree.
We're way ahead of ourselves. I guess the point here is it is an option.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The details can be hammered out later if it comes to fruition.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to add one thing just because I don't want to get a neighborhood relationship off to a bad start. This is not something that the developer would want to spend the dollars on improving. There were initial plans that didn't have a roadway for some of the very reasons we're talking about here today. However, doing the due diligence that we have to do as a staff and remaining consistent with the, guidance documents that we're beholden to, and being consistent with our policy recommendations to council, we required the road to be in. Just want to make that clear. I know, throwing our neck out there as a staff a little bit, but I don't want there to be a characterization that the developer must or shall have this, or the development goes away. That's not the case. It's on our books, so to speak, and that's why the staff must recommend. In this situation, it's not a perfect situation. I think, I would disagree with the volume of traffic that is going to actually use this subdivision. I don't think it's a huge shortcut by any means, but certainly as a parent and a neighbor, we don't discount the fact that you're going to definitely have some impacts in your neighborhood. However, as a staff, we have to take the emotions out of that, understand it's not a perfect situation, and put forth a recommendation that we're really obligated to put forth, in that this was a platted roadway, guidance documents for the 27th Street access restrictions or plan that Doug had mentioned. So don't want to come across here as callous, but as a staff, we have to be consistent with our recommendations. All of the good things connecting neighborhoods and safety and services and all of that that you've heard. But as a staff, we have to be consistent with these recommendations, because the next time, the next officially platted road, it works perfectly. And we can't be inconsistent with those recommendations.
Thank you, Andrew. Ma'am, did you have a comment? Name and address, please. And
Vicki Heller, 8725 South Brayburn Drive. This whole thing has gotten set up without the people of Apple Creek subdivision being not properly notified. You say you don't have to notify people if they're more than 300 feet. All of us are less than 300 feet from the roads, and it's the condition of the roads that are in question. So therefore, all of the residents are entitled to any notices of any meetings. We're not getting them. The only way we find out about these meetings is word of mouth. And I think it's totally inappropriate to run something like this through without giving the people of Apple Creek the right to have their say. If you would send notices to everybody in that subdivision, you wouldn't have enough room here. You'd have to extend the meetings. You're short sheeting Apple Creek.
thank you, ma'am. Just be clear, we're not speaking about the roads, we're speaking about the certified survey map. So, Doug?
Yeah, and I guess just to reiterate again that, I mean, if the number is 300 feet, the person who's 301 feet is going to say, why wasn't I notified? If it's 500 feet, it's going to be, why wasn't I notified? I'm 501 feet. I mean, the fact that our own requirements, and this is above and beyond state statute, this is our own local requirement, this is a standard that we hold ourselves to, is to notify people of certified survey maps and things that don't necessarily require public hearing. But we've always, and working with the alderperson for the district, if he or she feels that we need to go beyond that to include entire subdivisions, we're always willing to do that. But I mean, there's a number that we start with, and certainly throughout the process, and you are here this evening, if you want to be notified, again, just drop me an email. I think, well, it's not up on the screen, but I can leave some cards out here for you, and you know, we'll be happy to add you to the mailing list. I mean, we're not trying to hide anything. I think you'll find that this community is as transparent as it comes with respect to trying to keep people informed, and the fact that we try to get people involved just so that we have positive outcomes. So, you know, nothing's being done that's improper. Certainly, if you and unfortunately, your alderman isn't here this evening for legitimate reasons. But if there are those of you who want to be notified, if you know of people who might want to be notified, just jot your name down, your address. We'd be happy to include you on that mailing list.
And one more point. When it comes to public meetings, all public meetings are posted on the website and also here at City Hall. So the information is out there, even if you do live 301 feet away, everything is posted. So nothing is being tried to slide by you. So I'm going to open it up to council. Steve, I think you had your hand up there a little bit ago.
Mayor, correct. Alderman Kurkowski, 1st District. So I apologize if my comments are not in any sensible order, because I was writing them down in here in whatever space I had left. But I do acknowledge that, and I understand that we're talking about certified survey map, which means we're just talking about the property. We're not making final decisions on any roads or anything like that, correct? Or landscaping or what the project is going to look like. It's just a certified survey map, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And if I'm, and maybe before you get just going, I'm going to pass around just a tablet of paper. If you want to put your name on there, we'll make sure you get added to the mailing list. So I'm going to send it around, and if I'm going to leave it up here for those of you who want to.
So I have a few things I just want to make a statement on. Then there's a couple questions I have that Mike or Doug or Tony will be able to answer. So Tony, I think you should just come on up and have a seat because you're going to be answering some questions. Thank you. So I want to acknowledge that I did get 9 emails from 10 individuals, and I did take the time to read them very thoroughly. And at the suggestion of one of the individuals, I did take a drive through the subdivision today. And I did notice it's exactly what we've all talked about tonight. There's no sidewalks, just cars parked on the road. There's no street lights. Perhaps if you got a car parked across the street from one another, the road could be a little narrow. And yeah, I even saw kids on the street and a lady walking her dog in the street, so I had to slow down and give her a wide berth going around. So I appreciate that. So, but one of the questions I have is for Mike is, are the roads in the Colonial Woods area, are they private or public? Or except for that one road where you told me kind of goes to nowhere, which probably could be public. But what about the roads that are through that condominium development?
The entrance cul-de-sac road right off of 27th Street is a public street. Off of that, extending then towards the east is a private road, and that feeds all the buildings. And then it continues and ends in a cul-de-sac at the far east end. That's private as well. And in that process, it crosses the north-south road that is a dead end at its north end and at its south end, and that is the public road. That's Orchard Way.
Okay. Tony, the scope of the apartments that are going to be built there, or the style, is it comparable to Drexel Ridge with the luxury, the price range, and the demographics that you're targeting these for?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, do you envision any type of road coming off of 27th into the development, or is that something you just are hoping that there's the extension of coming in from the subdivision there?
No, the site plan that we've shared with the city that was discussed at last week's Plan Commission meeting does actually show 2 access points off of 27th Street. The one that is the same shared cul-de-sac, private or public street that goes into Colonial Woods, and also at the south property line in the exact same location that gentleman pointed out previously, we have a second entrance and exit in that location as well.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have, so you can, sorry if I'm, so I just want to let the residents know that Drexel Ridge is in my district, and Tony has been extremely cooperative with regards to working with the residents that were adjoining that development. I mean, and I just met with him last week about something, and he's going to take care of an issue that it's only going to affect two homeowners, but he's going above and beyond. So I don't have any problems saying that if there's issues that the residents need to address, that Tony won't listen to your concerns. But what I guess I was getting at is, if we've got a private development, kind of like Drexel Ridge, which is the roads going in and out are all private roads. The city doesn't maintain them. The private garbage pickup, private plowing, that whole. And I imagine it's going to be the same concept at this development. And Tony's shaking his head yes. Why? This is for Mike. Why do we have to connect a city street that would be going into a development that would be, let's, for sake of discussion, mostly private roads? Why can't we take into consideration a subdivision that was built 20, 25 years ago that has no street lights, so it's going to be awfully dark? I mean, there's street lights out by the water tower, but there's none throughout the subdivision. Why can't we just not let that development connect to the subdivision and just end it right there, and then let the apartment complex be its own little entity, and private roads there connecting with private roads for the condo development. I mean, fire trucks and ambulances coming in and out. If there's 2 entrances and exits off of 27th, that takes care of that problem. I don't want to get into a lot of the comments I had with regards to any potential crime or increased traffic or impact on the school district and things like that, which I can just go back to my notes for Drexel Ridge. But why do I understand you want to connect all these things together, but my problem is connecting public roads to a private development. And I would just like to see it be its private development and the subdivision, and let the road just stop there. There's some valid points about all those people who live there will be driving through and utilizing the public roads coming from their private development. So maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, I think that we've touched on this, and this was the fact that these are the official road patterns, the established road patterns, and it's basically making good on the plan that was created several years ago as a well thought out road network. And as those go in, and as then the adjacent property develops, there becomes a need for additional roads coming off of that, and that's when in some instances those roads are private roads, and city does not own and maintain those. So, in answer to your question, if that absolutely needs to be connected, that is the strong recommendation of staff based on the plan that's in place.
Okay. And I did so. I'm not an engineer and I'm not a planner of sorts, but looking at the original, shall we say, floor plan for this, it would have been single-family subdivisions with the road and 2 cul-de-sacs, and I estimated 26 to 30 houses, maybe could be more or less than that. So that's what we potentially could have had versus a development like this.
If I may, Steve, I mean, while the road pattern was set up for that, I mean, with the potential cul-de-sacs kind of reaching out to the west, the actual zoning was, a portion of it was B4, which is highway business, and a portion of it was RM1, which is multifamily. So not narrowly true, but I mean, it was set up for different types of land uses, or at least the zoning represented some different land uses other than single family, which was kind of what the official map was laid out for the most part for.
Okay. And lastly, I will concur with the resident who said people don't stop at stop signs anymore, because we had one placed right by our house, and I still see the residents kind of motor on through that stop sign like it wasn't even there. So yeah, that's true. Oh golly gee. But anyways, we're just talking about this certified survey map. And Arden, you didn't come up and talk, but I noticed on the proposal there are sidewalks on Orchard Way extension. So there you go, sidewalks. Unfortunately, they don't come into the subdivision. And you're right, we don't have the money for sidewalks and streetlights, but unfortunately, it was built 25 years ago, and like Mike said, that's the way they were built back then. Lastly, South Liberty Lane, Rich, does go from Putes up into Drexel Town Square, and that has showed an increase in traffic after this was built. So there's, folks that had kind of a quiet neighborhood now have a bunch of traffic coming through their neighborhood. So that's all I have. And I'll reserve some of the other comments for when we get to the meeting that has the approval of the design. But residents, talk to Tony. I'm sure he'll meet with you if he can and discuss any concerns for his development. Thank you very much. Sorry I was so long-winded.
Okay, Rich, anything? Mike? Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. As I think Doug laid out, I think obviously one of the first steps in the official process here, the land division, I think is fairly straightforward, and I think least initially, holding to our street good as recommended by planning and staff, I think is a sound decision. We've seen around the city where some silly decisions have been made in the past in terms of not holding to officially mapped things and then leading to it isn't right away. Decades down the line, you read to properties are landlocked, undevelopable. We've got situations that just do not lend themselves to the proper development of the city. So I think initially, at least having this property set up in terms of its current division as it's planned, I think is at least a first step. And then as some of the gentlemen in the back with the roundabout and some of the other street patterns and Tony's egress off of 27th Street, which I think would actually be going to be the most used entrance to this particular project. I think makes the most sense, at least initially. And we can always work on traffic, calming traffic design. In my district, and I know in Alderman Krakowski's district, just last year we installed some traffic calming measures to deal with some traffic situations that have brewed up, and they've been successful. So there are processes out there to deal with that. The rural cross section for your neighborhood, it is what it is. I live in the same kind of subdivision. It is. It's a public street, unfortunately. So it isn't a little enclave, even though you guys have been there kind of by yourselves for a while. But in the big picture, it's going to be part of something bigger, and it's part of it will be developed sooner rather than later if Tony's project moves forward. We were very comfortable with the way Tony does business. He's had a very successful development. Has provided a product that's been in very high demand. We like working with him. We think he'll do a good job. And for the time being, I'll support the roadmap and the CSM as it's laid out.
Thank you, Ken. Before we call on a motion, ma'am, you had a question. You had come up to the podium and back.
Kenny, was there anything relevant out of planning that you want to?
Yeah. Remind me, we got to have Catherine read in Alderman Lorik's comments that he emailed in. Planning went kind of round and round with this also. We had a good showing, some of the same faces and a lot of new ones in here. All the same concerns. Again, what we're really doing here is just a certified survey map to begin with. How this project develops, finances, and what it ultimately looks like. Could be what's there, could be different. But ultimately, we went round and round with it. We did have Fire speak. And Chief, if you'd like to say something, if not, you don't have to. But Mike Kresick, Assistant Chief, got up and told us about the public safety aspect of it. And then, of course, we hit all the same points we've talked about. Once again, I kind of said there's a lot of assumptions going out there. Some may be very valid and some not so much. But again, it's really part, I think Ken said it best, it's part of the bigger plan. We try to follow the direction of the city so we don't end up with these landlocked parcels and these problems 10, 15 years down the line as the city starts to change and reinvent itself. So,
very quickly before Tony gets up, our chief, just for those of you who want to follow along with this and any development that's going along in the city, if you go to the city's website, oakcreekwi.org, and if you go under your government to community development, thank you. There's a button, and I'll show you that. It's called Zoning Hub, Interactive Zoning Code. And that you can go on, you can see whatever pending applications are out there. And this is called HSI Properties. And every plan that we have will be out there. All the schedule for the public meetings will be out there. And I know I threw a lot out there at you. I mean, if you want to give the planning department a call, anyone there will be happy to run you through that same process. If you want to send us an email, we'd be happy to send you links to that. So we want people to be as informed as possible. And we're kind of rolling out this tool. It's kind of new for us right now. And so as we kind of go through our website redesign, it'll be more prominent. But the tools are out there for you to stay informed. And we'll, the addition of these names to the mailing list, that's one of those tools as well. So we'll make sure that as much information as we have, that's what information you'll have.
Doug and Dan, just to clarify, tonight's meeting, some of you folks, I think, got the impression this was not a public hearing,
not.
and there were no notices mailed for this meeting. So it's only agendized, so unless you were looking at the website, you did not see it. So you will make sure, if you're looking for public hearings, you want to make sure you attend, you need to make sure you're looking on the agendas. You will get notices for officially public hearings, but other than that, it's strictly agenda items, and you'll have to pay attention to that and show up on your own.
And again, we allowed speaking tonight. Some communities, they don't. It's the discretion of the council and the mayor. So, but again, we believe in transparency, open dialogue. So we wanted you guys to have the floor for a while. So, Tony?
Thank you, Mayor. Would like to just make two last points. One, I'd like to piggyback a comment that Mr. Seymour made earlier about the current zoning, that's B4. Roughly about 2/3 of this site is currently zoned B4, which is highway, business, commercial, which would allow up to about 225,000 square feet of commercial or retail space. And then the other third, the far eastern third, is already zoned for the ultimate zoning that we'd be looking for, the RM1. So in light of that, there was a comment made at last week's Plan Commission meeting, I believe by staff, maybe engineering staff, that regardless of whether this is multifamily or commercial, that it would still be staff's recommendation that this road connect through. So it's not, I just want to make it clear, it's not tied to the type of use we're proposing here, but it's more of a, going back to everything that you heard previously.
That was our traffic engineer.
And then last comment is the approval tonight is conditioned on us actually moving ahead, buying the property, starting construction on this. We still have a long ways to go, a lot of engineering to do, designing roads, buildings. We're going to be back before you numerous times. So just want to make clear that tonight is not, if with an approval this evening, we don't have a green light to go start this project tomorrow. Everything is going to be tied to all the subsequent approvals that will be required of this and for this project to come together, that if they do not, then an approved CSM here this evening is a moot point.
Thank you, Tony. There's no other comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Could you, thank you for the reminder, Ken. Catherine, could you read Alderman Lorik's email into the record?
Certainly. This was written by Gregory Lorik, Second District Alderman. First off, I do apologize for my absence from this important meeting, but prior commitments I was unable to change kept me from speaking in person. I'm writing on behalf of the residents of the Second District that have reached out to me over the past couple of weeks regarding the CSM rezone for the future HSI multifamily development on South 27th Street in the Second District that was passed by the Planning Commission on June 12, 2018. As you are aware, the CSM notates the dedication for a public street to connect Orchard Way and make it a through street to the new development, as well as the existing Colonial Woods to the north. Due to the overwhelming feedback on this item, I am urging the council to consider all options on this item and determine if the public roadway is absolutely necessary and truly the best option in this case. I raised the question at Planning Commission that if this area was not rezoned, remained B4, and welcomed a large business on this at the site on 27th, would a road even be put in as it would be behind a business? I compare this to the dedication of the planned roadway behind the future car dealership that may not be necessary. I will echo the numerous phone calls and emails I have received over the past week and voice my concerns for potentially increasing traffic on the roads throughout the adjacent subdivision. The current subdivision has no streetlights and no sidewalks. Currently, when vehicles park on both sides of the streets, which does happen often on weekends, which also happens to be the time most kids are home and playing, it leaves just enough room for one vehicle to pass down the roadways. This makes for a potentially dangerous situation. One reason brought forth for the connection is public safety and a secondary entrance. I would offer making the connection to the north would also provide the entrance. This connection would not only create a secondary entrance, not create a type of perceived shortcut as exiting the development directly to the 27th would be the most convenient option. Conversely, making the connection to the Orchard Way to the south would create a direct route for residents of the development to drive directly through the subdivision to get to West Buttes and business to the east. I feel that the residents I have personally spoke with welcome this development as a whole, but caution making a public through road. Thank you for weighing the options on this matter as I am out of state. Please note if the street is deemed absolutely necessary and ultimately moves forward, at this point I cannot support it and will not support the and will support the many residents in the second district. Thank you again, respectfully, Gregory Lorick, second district alderman.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
So with that, we'll entertain a motion on item 12.
Yeah, we'll move to approve Resolution 11954-061918, approving a certified survey map for Tony DeRosa HSI Properties LLC for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way.
Holman seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Okay. Again, folks, it's just a certified survey map, so please monitor the website and stay up to speed on what's going on. This takes us back. I need a 5-minute break. To item 5. So, yeah, 5-minute break. We will take a 5-minute recess. 5, it is our strategic action plan report. Andrew, you got this one, or Doug?
Yep, that's me. Doug, unless you want to give the presentation. Okay, touche. I think that we cover a lot of background and things in the presentation, so I think I'll just jump into it. But the only prefatory comments I'd make before jumping into the presentation would be, we are doing everybody here a favor and trying to distill months and months of analysis and 35, 40-page analysis into a hopefully very brief PowerPoint presentation. So there is a lot of additional meat on the bone in the document that you have in your packet. Obviously, it'll be a discussion tool as we move forward here. So we are giving a very high-level, overview of this analysis. So I want to start by introducing the topic, a strategic action plan initiative. This is our CIP funding alternatives analysis. We had originally launched into what we coined a special assessment policy team to see about special assessment policy and practices. But there's just too much out there in terms of other funding strategies. And as you'll see, the strategic plan calls for other analysis. So we've kind of lumped them together. As you guys know, June 6th, 2017, the city adopted its first strategic action plan in a number of decades that covers years 2017 through 2020. That document included 2 critical success factors. One of them is financial stability, and you can read the value statement there. Another one, a critical success factor, was quality infrastructure, amenities, and services. And I want to read that one. This is our value statement under that critical success factor. We are an organization that leverages our proximity to, yet seeks to enhance multimodal transportation in the future, supports and improves our existing roadways and capital assets, strives to provide a comprehensive range of public services at the best possible value proposition achievable, and invest in community facilities that both increase aesthetics of the city and demonstrate an optimal quality of life experience for our residents. We're painting the picture of why we're talking about this evening. We all espoused it in our critical document, one of the most critical documents in the city, our SAP. Moving from the more general to the specific, we had a specific goal statement in our strategic action plan, and it reads as follows: create fiscal policy teams and provide analyses and recommendations on a multi-year budget strategy. Within the strategic action plan, we had more specific objectives. Objective 1, examine special assessment policies and options for funding future capital expenditures. Objective 2, develop a strategy and long-range funding plan for capital equipment and infrastructure needs. Objective 3, explore new methods, best practices to maximize the useful life of roads and bridges. So that's why we have spent a lot of staff time and talent, I would add, on producing this document for the council. We all agreed that this was important. These were important items to look at. So what we did to start it off, we convened a policy team, and I just wanted to add some recognition to all of these folks for their hard work. but also shows you we had a wide array of departments from engineering to the utility to accounting, and we also had resident Sig Tomkowski join us on our policy team, and he did a lot of work as well. So kind of, again, getting into it, in the executive summary, we have a local government dilemma. We have growing capital improvement needs and constrained funds with which to address those needs. And when we say growing backlog, that's not some, derelict councils of present or past. That is just the situation local governments find themselves in. So I don't want to suggest that we've not done something we should have, or we were asleep at the wheel. It is, as I've called it here, the local government dilemma. It's universal. So the question is, how can we be proactive in protecting our investments? And the way we sum this up is, we're responsible. We're the stewards of the city's capital assets and the stewards of the taxpayers' dollars here. To us, it's not a matter of if we do something, it's a matter of how we go about achieving what we need to. So that begs the question, well, what are available funding strategies and alternatives that the council, as policymakers in the community, can consider moving forward to address some of these needs? So while we have many needs, you'll see the note at the bottom of this slide, many different buckets of capital items. This analysis focuses in on three, but actually two, and I'll explain. The city has 310 lane miles, and we spend about $681,000 a year on annually for road projects, 18 bridges, and the first time we've undertaken a large maintenance project was last year. And also, the city is presently inventorying and creating a capital improvement plan for, one, a possible conversion to LED streetlights, but also just general capital improvement plan. As you gentlemen are all aware, much of our subdivision development took place, well, at least a lot of it, in the 70s and 80s when some of that initial street lighting went in. A lot of the city's street lighting network are older than some of your management staff here. So not to say we haven't done routine maintenance, but certainly, as an example, we had different standards and did things differently from a construction standpoint. So our funding targets in the areas of roads, what ultimately the recommendation is in this report is we think that we can get a ways ahead if we can provide an additional funding source for $350,000 annually for road maintenance. Now, maintenance is a key word there. We want to direct those funds towards maintenance activities, and I'll turn it over to Mike to explain a little bit about how we arrived at that conclusion and more or less what impacts we think that can have.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, as we looked at the conditions of our road, our growing backlog of road needs, we've concluded that we do need to put more money towards these roads. I mean, that is obvious, but what we need to do is we need to do it wisely, and we know from experience and what we've seen in other communities and state DOT studies that you need to invest in your roads early on. And this is a practice that we had not really subscribed to. We were constructing new roads at a significant rate in the late 80s and 90s as subdivisions were developing. And then we were walking away from those roads fearing, okay, these roads are good. We'll have to do something with them again someday. And basically, we've got some exhibits that in the appendix of the report that show that you can go through 75% of the useful life of a roadway, and it remains in fairly good condition, and that's meaning a rating of 6 or better on our Paisley scale, of 1 being bad, 10 being a new road. And then it will take a dive and deteriorate at a quicker rate. And we have gotten to the point that this is when we are showing our roads the more significant attention. Now, we have done crack sealing with the DPW staff earlier on, but really that's where these roads have really come up on our radar when they get down to a rating of 4 or less. And so we took another look at it, did a different type of an analysis utilizing a DOT program, and Andrew had alluded to that we've been spending about $650,000 to $680,000 on roads, and we said, well, let's get it back up to $1 million. We input that. It spit out the results. Let's look at doubling it to 1.25 million. What are the results? Well, basically, what it's showing is that that first option of adding another 350,000 or so, it reduces our backlog a certain percent, and I've got the numbers in here. And basically, it's kind of like a bell curve that you want to find the balance. You spend too much money. Yes, you see a bigger reduction in the backlog, but now you have output, more financial. You've spent more money doing that. So basically, that's where we have come up with our conclusion that let's spend another $350,000. Let's expand the range of roads that you're working on, thereby doing maintenance on higher rated roads, keeping them higher rated for longer. You get more of longer useful life and better condition along the way.
I think maybe just to sum it up conceptually, I call it you kind of cut out the middle, right? We have a backlog. So what we're doing with these maintenance dollars, we're keeping our annual funding and addressing, probably the 1 through 4s. We may find that we want to shift a little more to maintenance because that maximization has a better yield for the tax dollar. But we the longer we can keep these roads at 6 to 8 and direct some funds there, we cut out the middle and we reduce the backlog in the end that keeps kind of stacking up. That's the way I conceptualize it. I don't know if it's, exactly how it would be, how you would go about wrapping your head around that, but I think that's one way. Did you have anything else on the maintenance piece of that? And obviously this is covered substantially in the report. So additionally, moving on to the second funding goal here, we really feel it would be prudent for the city to look at establishing a bridge maintenance reserve fund. We have some experience with the large maintenance projects of 2017, and there were some, those exceeded the budgeted amounts. We think that having funds available every 8 to 10 years on hand to be able to address those maintenance items, again, maximize the useful life of the bridge, as we will see with the maintenance from last year. Now, lastly, and a big piece of this that isn't in the report is we have a separate policy analysis team analyzing the potential LED streetlight conversion and creating a capital improvement needs assessment essentially for that street lighting grid. So that input will be put back into this document and those will interplay. We'll obviously arrive at a funding goal for that program as well. The real problem here is that we're not, good and bad, levy limits are in place to protect, taxpayer resources as well as the expenditure restraint program. Those are, conceptually good things, but they do hinder local decision making in terms of we have a need and we as a local government want to address it. Well, let's address it next year. And we'll educate the public as to what we're doing. While levy limits and ERP prevent us obviously from doing that with revenue and on the flip side, expenditure limitations. So here's the list of potential funding strategies and alternatives that we looked at. This is the all-inclusive list. And what I would say is that this list is what's available to you. I mean, it's everything. I don't think we missed anything. It will be what's available to you very likely 5 years from now if we choose option A, which is do nothing. I think you're going to deal with the same set of circumstances, but be how many ever years behind in a growing backlog. So do nothing is always an option. Of course, we could special assess residents and owners for improvements. Now we're talking maintenance improvements, mill and overlay. We do already special assess for major reconstruction and urbanization projects. Those types of projects are all defined in the report, of course. We could do incremental levy increases, non-referendum. I think if we had the ability to do that the last few years, maybe we would have, but that's not a sustainable option. At least the way things have stacked up budgetarily in local government the last few years. We can ask the public via a referendum. We can borrow, but again, we're talking about maintenance projects, so clearly we're not going to recommend borrowing for chip sealing projects or whatever strategies are deployed. This is a central one, and this would be a newly introduced concept to the council and the community, and that's the creation of a special charge to fund annual street lighting energy maintenance and associated cost of our street lighting grid. That enables us to have levy capacity or CIP capacity by shifting that cost to a special charge on the tax bill. Talk more about that later. Local vehicle registration fees. These are all clearly further analyzed in the report, and you'll see why we're not going to put you through that pain. Strategic use of existing tax increment finances, specifically TID 10. What we found is, as a strategy, at the time Drexel Interchange and the Drexel Avenue road improvements were made, TID 7 wasn't able to support those costs. They're contemplated in the TID project plan to a degree. However, at the time we had to pull the trigger on those projects, very forward-thinking decisions that we made that are obviously reaping benefits every day here, the TID couldn't support those. So those are being funded by the capital improvement sources of funds at this point. So we feel that TID 7, if we take a look at this, we take a look at the current finances as well as projects forthcoming in TID 7, we feel that we could shift those debt service payments for Drexel Avenue and Drexel Interchange improvements back to that TID to support for the remainder of its life, thus creating space in our regular CIP every year. So what are we actually recommending? Probably hinted at a few and given the time I spent on them. We're recommending that we continue with historic special assessment practices as we have for reconstruction, major urbanization projects, and that kind of thing. However, we're also recommending that we engage in special assessing for road rehabilitation projects, mills and overlays, maintenance type stuff. However, this is the least desirable of those options. If you don't like any of the other options, we have to go back and default to this option. But we think that if you follow our logic in the other recommendations, that it will soon become clear that there are other more palatable, more responsible, and probably options with more appetite with the public. And Mike, would you want to shed a few light on some of the pitfalls that we know exist or we've actually experienced ourselves with special assessment projects?
Yes, we've in over the course of the last 2 decades, we've explored several different types of projects, drainage projects, improvements to urban section based on a perceived need or a want by a neighborhood, and we've gone ahead and we've calculated those, and there's been times when it has killed the project. Suddenly there's not such a need or a desire. So one of the pitfalls is we have a project that we need, and special assessments historically are just not well received, and a lot of times they get the project gets shot down. And So we've seen that, and so that's an expectation that we would definitely encounter on these. And as we do our road projects, again, now we're talking about our rehabilitation projects, which are, very, very necessary projects. These are projects that we do on roads that are 3s, 4s, and 5s, and we do a fair amount of them, and we do them every other year. And this process of special assessing, again, it gets fairly dicey, emotional, political, and it takes a lot of staff time to prep for these meetings, to provide all the information that is needed, and it can really slow these projects down. So I mean,
A protracted public process too that we obviously have to undertake.
So we just suspect that there may not be a big appetite for that.
Thank you, Mike. Recommendation number 2 is the levy strategy. That's really, hey, as we look at each budget, any available funding we have under current levy limits and expenditure restraint, we need to make a conscious effort to prioritize with all the other priorities in our budget, especially from an operational and staffing standpoint, public safety. We have to make a concerted effort to start socking away a little bit more each year. Obviously, that's been available to the city. Number 3, really central recommendation here in avoidance of a less desirable option of special assessing is the creation of a special charge on the property tax bill to fund streetlight energy and maintenance costs, creating levy capacity, which we could use elsewhere in the capital budget for roads, bridges, and street lighting. There are a ton of methodologies and ways to equitably distribute this across parcels in the city. This is a growing trend among communities. Both Bridget and I have worked in communities where this method is employed. But certainly, we need to be deliberate moving forward, and we'll kind of get into that with the next steps. And then I think I covered this, the TIF use strategy with using, turnaround over the last several years in TID 7 finances to alleviate costs, which very likely, if not surely, would have otherwise already been attributing to the TID 7. That option also does not negatively affect general property taxes also. So really, what in some summation in my mind was, does the Common Council feel typical single-family property owner prefers to pay a substantial assessment of milling and overlaying every of $2,500 or $3,000 every 15 to 20 years? That's in the analysis. That's what some of our past projects would have cost per lot. Or does the council feel a taxpayer would rather pay something much, much smaller, but on an annual basis and be a known quantity, and probably a manageable amount for most folks' budget. 50 to 70 is a straight line approach of what our street lighting energy and maintenance costs are, divided by every improved property in the city. That's not necessarily how we would have to do it, but again, that straight line approach, that's ballpark. So conclusions and next steps. You can thank me in advance for this. We're not looking for any immediate decisions on this. Clearly, we have 2 council members gone this evening. Need everybody to have time to digest this, ask some probing questions of the staff. If you have any initial comments or questions, though, we'd like you to put those out there. And I asked this when we were preparing for this presentation. Any fatal flaws in the presentation or the analysis? Are we missing anything glaring, or do you have any suggestions for improving it? It's going to be waved around for years to come here. Secondly, we obviously have a big hole in this funding targets in terms of the CIP report for the LED conversion and streetlight CIP have not concluded yet. They're very close, if not a month or so away from wrapping that up, or at least a first review for me and other staff. Of course, further analysis and methodology for implementing recommendations specific to the TID 7 and the street lighting charge they're going to take some more time. So We are not looking to spend the summer, running around trying to come up with a best method of how this streetlight charge may work, if indeed that's a direction you want us to head down to look further into it. We are not focusing in on that strategy for the 2019 budget. We would take 2019 to educate the policymakers more, come up with a best method that everybody thinks is a equitable way, and of course educate people on that. So we're not looking necessarily for anything tonight other than major red flags where don't even invest any more time in any one of these recommendations. Clearly, this is a coupling or a tripling of strategies on top of one another to achieve what we think we can achieve, or need to achieve in terms of funding targets. So with that, we would be happy to answer any questions or listen to suggestions.
You do have two people wishing to speak. Sig, would you like to come up first?
Sig Tomkowski, 210 Oak Leaf Drive and Kendall Creek Estates. Thank you very much. It has been an honor for me personally to sit on the team and to participate and do a few things to create this report. It's been around since last October that we started, and this represents an awful lot of hard work on the part of the leadership and the staff to put this together. It also is something that has focused on what does special assessment mean, and I did a whole report on that's in the report. There's a lot of misperceptions about that and a lot of anxiety that occurs, and from the analysis that the staff has done, this is probably not a common approach in many areas of infrastructure improvement, et cetera. At the same time, attention is needed as we see the future coming along, as we see the infrastructure deteriorating, and as we see the incremental cost increases due to inflation when you come about doing this. What I see here is a multifaceted, prudent approach to plan and to engage in adapting to the stresses and challenges that for funding that will continue to occur. And from that regard, I think that the options that are referenced in section number 7, conclusion and next step, kind of highlight those different alternatives that you may want to consider. For me personally, it's exciting to live in a community that is focused not only on financial planning, but also on strategic planning, but the operative word in there is action. Many strategic plans just sit up on a shelf and collect dust. This one has identified a number of initiatives that will occur over time, and this is one of them. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And just deferring, attention, as we've seen in a lot of other communities, the costs don't go away, but they increase, and the anxieties and the complaints continue to grow and increase. So I think this is a multifaceted approach that I'm sure takes a little bit of deep reading and reflection, and go back and look at it and then come up with what you all believe in the best interest of the community in the future is the prudent way to go. I'm not going to go into the details because they've spent an awful lot of work on this. This is something they should copyright and they could use in many other communities that we hear about. I'm not going to name names in Milwaukee, but we know where they are. So that's all I have to say, and I'll have to excuse myself after this. My daughter calls me around this time, and if she doesn't get an answer, she freaks out and has to come from Genesee to where is Dad?
Understood.
So, but thank you very much for letting me express myself.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work, Sig.
Arden?
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I've been waiting for the last 20 years for this to hit the fan. We all know the problems with the Oak Creek budget, unfunded pension liabilities. It's even worse in the school district where they have 90 million and they want to have 110 million additional referendums.
We're not the school district, Arden.
Yes, but back when I was signed to have the school district separate from the city. It was all one. You were responsible for both. But oh no, that isn't the type of training we had in mind for our city. But my first question is, why have you taken into consideration all the city increases in value that have been done with all these TIF districts that are supposed to come online with millions of dollars? Has that been considered in this capital funding? The reason why I'm saying that is fairly evident. The reason why Oak Creek was founded was to get away from the city of Milwaukee's socialist programs. We had a city charter, and we felt, and especially since we had the power plant, Mayor Meyer wanted to get that money. We kept it here in Oak Creek. But have we been frugal enough to keep it? I think this plan says it all. It's good to plan. I believe with Sig, I agree with him, we have to plan. But have we actually carried? I keep recalling the statement of the bond council some years ago. Why, this bond is due in 2034. I won't be alive and you won't be either. Why should you be concerned about it? Somebody else is going to pay for it. That isn't the way I was brought up. I was brought up in a frugal fashion, and I think most of you here too. I respect each one of you. And this is what I have pointed out a number of times. All this money that's spent on publicizing, all this money that's spent on entertainment, when we have, for years, had a private group called the Oak Creek Community Center. But oh no, it has to compete with everything else. Why can't we pay for this by collapsing some of these expensive things? You can name a bunch of items, and a lot of it, of course, has to do with the new complete digitalizing of every operation. Nothing can be done without detailed, so many details on every action. Like, I understand there's another health problem coming up here. There's so many details involved, no human can keep track of it. You have to carry hundreds of pages on your iPad to keep up with this. Oh, I think this is the way the Soviets ran too. You had a complete listing of so much requirements that nothing could be done. And that's exactly what's happening in our state and our nation today.
Arden.
We have
You have comments on the report?
we have an administrative government instead of a government by the people. We have lost government by the people.
Thank you.
Unless there's any other comments, Dan, maybe knowing we're getting late into the evening, be happy to meet any of you individually to discuss the specifics of the report. Obviously as we move forward with kind of further fleshing out these recommendations and giving more analysis and guidance and education on those, we'll be back before you. So.
Okay. Guys, what item are you? Oh, you're just listening? Okay, great.
Thank you, brave souls.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Item 6, it's our vendor summary report. We have Bridget here for questions. Please direct them to her. Bridget, I have a question concerning item 16. It has to do with our tourism board. Seeing as they didn't meet and didn't have a quorum and our tourism director is currently on vacation, is it possible to approve it but not send out the check till we get the details?
Kristen being off right now, I actually think that this one was another situation where we had a vendor who needed to be paid because he gave us the beer and we sold it and we needed to reimburse him for the beer garden.
Okay.
So we were under,
Okay, no, I don't want to be a bad customer by any means. I just thought without the quorum being present at the last meeting, maybe further explanation of the event. Yeah. We'll, as Melissa was saying, we'll get the feedback, and if there's questions, we can report. At least my questions, we'll get them on the 17th. Anything else? Anybody? Not? Motion?
Bill move to approve the June 13th, 2018 vendor summary report in the combined total amount of $707,600.78.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye. Item 7 is an appointment to Park, Recs, and Forestry. Any questions concerning the applicant? None? Motion, please.
Bill move to concur with the mayor's appointment as listed.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
And item 8 is health. Consider a motion to enter into a contract negotiations with CHAMP for electronic health recording implementation. Help me out here.
Implementation.
Thank you. And training and maintenance. And with us is Darcy.
Hi, I'm Darcy Du Bois, Health Officer with the Health Department. We are asking to upgrade from our current electronic software system to a more comprehensive system that would allow us to better document the activities that we're conducting for the public and for the community, as well as to retrieve data out of that system in a better fashion so that we can complete grant reports and reports for the state and things that we're obligated to do. And also to maximize the insurance billing that we do. So our current system has very limited capabilities. We can only do a fraction of the documentation that we need to do, and it really takes a lot of staff time currently to complete the necessary documentation. So the system that I'm hoping to upgrade to is called Nightingale Notes through CHAMP, which is the vendor. And this is a system that's built specifically for public health. So the system only serves health departments. They don't work with hospitals and medical systems, which is the majority of electronic health systems. So they really understand the needs of health departments. It's built to take our data in, give it back to us in a system, a fashion that makes sense, and also, like I said, to really maximize the billing for services that public health does. In addition, I anticipate that this system will really evolve as public health evolves over the coming years, since they only serve health departments. I think that it will meet our needs for many years in the future. It's a system that's currently used by about 35% of all Wisconsin health departments. I understand that it is a significant cost and that it wasn't included in our budget for this year. As you know, I wasn't here last year during the budget process, but once I arrived, I quickly realized that this was something that was lacking in the health department with the documentation. The good news is that we have some grant funding that expires the end of June for emergency preparedness. That funding is through the state and really has some specific uses. We're only allowed to use it for activities or staff time that supports preparing for some kind of emergency situation. And having an electronic health record does support that. The state has given approval. So we have about $20,000 of funding yet to use. So that would be used towards this, the first year, which is significantly more expensive, it's about $26,000. The remaining would be covered by taking small amounts of other grants that come through the states. Because the documentation that we are doing supports all of the grants and they have extensive reporting requirements, paying for the system is an appropriate use of grant funds. And moving forward, the majority of the costs would be, again, covered by that emergency preparedness grant funding. The IT department would continue to pay only what they've been paying for the last, 10 or 15 years, which is about $2,000 a year for the system, and our grant funding would cover the rest of that cost. So I do not anticipate that we would need any increase in the health department budget in order to implement and utilize this software.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Mike?
Alderman Tolman, that 20 that you mentioned, that's already in the coffers, or is that okay?
Yep, so that's funding that's already been allocated to us, needs to be used by the end of June. And we've kind of used all the funding that we need for emergency preparedness for this year. So if we don't use it by the end of June, it goes back to the state.
Okay, and what are the odds on obtaining the rest of that through the grants that you mentioned?
The remaining 6,000?
Yes.
I've looked at the numbers and we can definitely cover that this year. We won't have any difficulty.
So we would have the option of maybe making this contingent on obtaining the rest of the grant funds?
Yeah, we've already received all the grant funds.
Oh, yeah,
So we already have them. They're just, we have through the end of the year to spend them.
All right.
So I have enough money remaining in those grant budgets.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Else? Rich? No? Nothing else. I have no questions. I think it's nice. A lot of it's covered by grants. Otherwise, grant money just goes away. So I would support it. All right. Motion.
Kirkowski make a motion, Kirkowski make a motion to begin contract negotiations with CHAMP for electronic health record system implementation, training, and maintenance.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak?
Aye.
Toman?
Aye.
Gale?
Aye.
Kirkowski?
Aye.
Item 9 is consideration to permit the Director of Public Works to accept a quote from Reliable Door for the installation of an acoustic curtain wall that would partition a weld shop from the mechanics area. Ted?
Hello. This is actually, if somebody wants to see this, I brought a sample of the material. This is actually going to be a large curtain. It's actually recommended by our CIVMIC, our insurance agent. It will deaden the sound between our welding shop and our mechanics area. It's been a request for about the last 3 years. This was something that was discussed during the CIP meetings and approved. We did have this out to a number of different contractors. Due to its specialized nature, we only received 2 quotes. It was slightly higher than we'd originally budgeted. We plan on making up the additional $3,250 in operational funding to cover this. $8,500 of this will be covered by a grant through CIVMIC as well. So, so the city isn't out for the entire cost of this. Again, it's a large curtain that partitions off, and it'll keep the noise on the one side where it's being made, and also eliminate the possibility of people getting flash burns and that from the welders on the other side, and keep some of the grinding dust and that down in the area. So other than that, I'll field any questions you might have.
Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. Ted, was this something that was recommended by CIVMIC?
It was actually a concern that our mechanics have because of the noise and that was going on with, and you can't really help it. I mean, that's just a noisy business to begin with. And so that was something that they did recommend. I mean, obviously you can wear earmuffs and stuff like that, but their first choice is if you can eliminate the problem, to eliminate it before you just try to mask it with like a earplug or something. It seems like you're always going to have this problem. So.
Thank you.
No.
They will move to permit the Director of Public Works to accept a quote from Reliable Door to install an acoustic curtain which would partition the welding shop from the mechanics area in the amount of $20,650.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Item 10 is consideration to adopt a resolution granting Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District a 10-year conservation easement at Lake Vista Park. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, under the development of the park, the city had secured a couple of grants from MMSD from two different programs under their green infrastructure umbrella of grants, and these are the porous pavers in the bump out parking areas along Lake Vista Parkway, and 2 bioretention swales that take runoff from the road. And that infrastructure is in place. Payment has been made, and we would like to get reimbursement from MMSD for the grants, which approach $159,000 that would be reimbursed. And as a condition of the grant, the city needs to convey a conservation easement to MMSD, basically assuring that the city will maintain this green infrastructure for the 10-year period, the 10-year life of the easement. After 10 years, the easement expires. It is our thought that we will continue to maintain that green infrastructure well beyond the 10-year period, as it is effective in the management of the stormwater, both from quantity and a quality perspectives.
Questions for Mike? Comments?
Just a comment, Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. What a win-win situation. Good stewards of the environment, and we get somebody else to pay for it. So that's a good thing.
Alderman Toman, 4th District. Mike, the first 3 years, the contractor picks up the maintenance? That's the way it reads here?
No, we need to, yes, excuse me, yes. And that is for the establishment of the bioretention swales. So that is a cost. I mean, we are paying for them to do that maintenance, but that is a cost that is reimbursable under the grant.
So the contractor picks up the first 3 years, but we pay the contractor for that 3, or that's?
That is correct. We need to have him do the maintenance because there are special plants that need to be established.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Not motion.
Dukniak, move to approve resolution number 11951-061918, granting to Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District a 10-year conservation easement at Lake Vista Park as shown in the attached figure.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Item 11 are recommendations from our Traffic and Safety Commission. Please take a look, and if there's any questions, comments.
I have a comment.
Go ahead,
Just-
Steve.
Alderman Kirkowski, First District. I just want to say thank you for the Traffic and Safety Commission to look at that pedestrian crosswalk at Drexel Town Square. Although it's not in my district, and maybe I don't take full credit for this, but I do have a constituent that lives in the Gables who is wheelchair bound and has a motorized wheelchair, and he did bring it to my attention that he's unable to get over to that bus stop because there's no cutout and he has to go on the road to get up on the sidewalk. So I just want to say thank you for addressing this concern.
Alderman Dukenyak, 3rd District, I am on the Traffic and Safety Committee, and we, as the Traffic and Safety Committee, were quite surprised that that condition had actually existed, and we thank you for bringing that to our attention. It was met with immediate approval. Obviously, there were some accessibility issues for those with disabilities. How that was overlooked, we don't know, but we're taking the corrective measures, and that should be done in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Okay. Just a couple general comments, because they're all 2nd District issues, and one of them existed for a long time while I was there, and that's West Sycamore and 22nd Street. It's been an ongoing problem for a long time, so they're putting in some passive traffic calming measures. Hopefully it'll relieve the speed of the traffic and some of the traffic, and I'm not exactly sure what they are. Are they speed tables, or what you guys up to?
No, on Sycamore, it is similar to what was done on Farmington Lane a couple of years back, and on Elm Road between Shepherd and Howell Avenue, and it is pavement markings. It's enhanced crosswalks that are more visible. It is lane lines 11 feet off the center line. It is also a center line painted. Right now, this is a relatively inexpensive traffic calming measure. Drivers that are driving in lanes that are 11 versus 12 or even wider tend to slow down a bit. We found it to be relatively effective in the 2 applications that it's been utilized thus far. So, and then there's a reminder 25 mile per hour painted right in the travel lanes. It's a couple of additional speed limit signs, but that's really the extent of it.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Dukenyak, 3rd District, again, at that meeting, a rather vocal group from that neighborhood, very skeptical about the effectiveness of the steps that we're going to take. It was mentioned to those residents, however, that this is a first step and a first step only. Long-term, our traffic and safety engineer, Matt Sullivan, has put together the Safe Routes to School program. There is a grant application in place. We're hopeful to receive some funding. One of the first areas that would be addressed would be that Sycamore Avenue with some bump outs that would slow traffic, and the speed tables as well. Engineer Sullivan did mention to the residents in attendance that the monies for those speed tables are approximately $8,000 to $10,000 each, and that money is not available in his general operating budget, but certainly, would be effective in slowing traffic. And we just keep our fingers crossed that Matt had mentioned there's a good possibility we'll have a decision on that Safe Routes to School grant application before the end of the year. So,
well, they certainly work.
Yeah.
If you've ever not been paying attention, they work. And then just lastly, real quickly, I'm glad to see the IKEA action. Was the time decided, and was it mutually agreed upon with IKEA?
Well, it was presented to us by IKEA just because they underestimated the amount of traffic that would be visiting their store beyond the opening 2 weekends. As a matter of fact, they had mentioned that traffic at the store last weekend was greater than opening weekend. So limiting their parking ability by placing the no parking sign all the way through IKEA Drive would have been difficult for them to manage. I will let council know and the general public know as well. IKEA is taking steps to open up 150 of their spaces that they have dedicated for employees as well. They just haven't found a willing partner right now. Most of their needs are on the weekends. So churches and movie theaters, that's when most of their traffic, runs as well. So that they haven't found they haven't found a willing partner to provide them with some additional short-term parking. Their estimate is that after Labor Day, they say their business is not, or it is seasonal, and most of it comes in the summer months. They're expecting that their level of traffic will slow after Labor Day, and that we could complete the process of putting no parking all the way throughout the IKEA Drive. But I mean, they were happy that we allowed for some of IKEA Drive to be used as parking up until the Labor Day holiday.
Great, thank you, Rich. That's all the questions I have. If none others, motion.
Dukenyak moved to concur with the recommendations of the Traffic and Safety Commission to approve the following points, A, B, C, D, as listed on the council meeting agenda.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Item 13 is the License Committee. I'd like to turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Kirkowski, 1st District. Everybody has received the Common Council report for tonight's meeting. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Then.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just noticed it. Under item number 5, we have a Class B combo license for El Fagan. Is that went out of business? I'm not sure what the status
They have
of that is.
not notified the city or requested a refund or a prorated refund of their license. So as of right now, we haven't had a request for the return of the license.
All right.
Catherine, is that option available to them to request a refund?
It is, but it needs to be at their request.
Okay.
You good?
Yep.
Okay. Kirkowski will make a motion to grant the various license requests as listed on the June 19th, 2018 License Committee report.
Dukenyak second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Now consider item 14. We will now consider a motion to convene in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 1985, Parent 1, Parent E, to consider a proposed term sheet between the City of Oak Creek and Lakeshore Veterinary Clinic Real Estate Oak Creek, LLC, for the development of the property at 9472 South 27th Street, tax key number 878-9000-001. President Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail will move to convene in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to consider a proposed term sheet between the City of Oak Creek and Lakeshore Veterinary Real Estate Oak Creek LLC for the development of the property at 9472 South 27th Street, tax key 878-9000-001.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
We'll now convene into closed session and return at its conclusion.
Gail moves to reconvene in the open session.
Dukenyak second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
And we have no action to take on closed session. At this time, Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let fellow council know, whoever might be watching, that I will not be at the July 4th parade, so I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea that I don't support the parade, but just want to let everybody know that I'm a volunteer Little League umpire, so I was selected by Little League to umpire the Europe and Africa tournament for junior league baseball with 13, 14-year-olds in Kutno, Poland. So while everybody is celebrating our nation's independence on July 4th, I will be out on a baseball field calling balls and strikes over in Poland, so I won't be back until July 8th. So I'll be the first to say have a safe and wonderful July 4th.
Great, thank you, and good luck and safe travels. Before we adjourn, we had a nice festival out there this weekend. Thanks to everybody that volunteered and helped. Very successful. Residents seem to really enjoy it. Other than that, get out there, discover and celebrate Oak Creek. Motion for adjournment, please.
Kirkowski make a motion to adjourn.
Dukniak second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman. Gale.
Aye.
Thank you.